Stronger Because of It is a compilation and tapestry of stories about individuals through their resilience and their overcoming ability have become stronger because of it. They're sharing their stories of power, passion, and perseverance.
Through their stories, we will capture the essence of their lives.
The things that made them break, the things that bent them backwards, but most of all, the things that gave them strength.
The things that made them stronger.
Welcome to Stronger Because of It.
The most important role that I have is that of being a mother. I'm the mother of two beautiful daughters, Chrissy and Nicole. Professionally, I'm a veteran broadcast journalist, and I've covered many, many stories. I'm also the Director of Community Relations for the YMCA of Central Florida. So I'm a people person. But the story that I want to tell you about today is the story of my life. The story that changed my life. When on the air, it was lights, camera, but no action. When my voice was taken from me, unknowingly suffering a stroke on air. And just last year, again a second time, when the right side of my face was drooped, and again my voice was taken. But by the grace of God, my voice is strong, as you can probably tell.
First of all, living a long life means you've taken some things into your own control, and you've abused and misused yourself and others. You've done things that accumulate. And the good thing is that you have to go through. And all the medical issues that I've gone through and everything else has made me a better person. It's tightened up the belts. It's strengthening the screws. It replaced a few things. And it's put me in position to be able to do what God wants. And that's to make sure I'm fulfilling my purpose.
After I got out of college, some of us who had been in a theater company together called Lambs Players wanted to do something at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, which is where we were. And so we decided to just go out and tell a story and use audience members as characters of the story and try it. And if it worked, we'd keep it. If it didn't work, we might keep it or throw it away, and formed SAC Theater.
When I think about the reality of how New Image came about, even I sometimes am amazed. My father moved this church from the Winter Park area, and at the time, he felt that God was leading him to speak and do more work, outreach work in the Paramore community. And I hated everything about Paramore. I kicked, I screamed, I begged him not to go. And in reality, I did not know that that was the very thing that was going to end up changing my life. So I was 21, college student, not sure exactly what I was going to do with my life, who I was, what I was supposed to become, what was my purpose, and how was I going to get there.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful engaging moment. I think having to have this idea of the incredible love for people, and that has given me the opportunity to want to be able to bring us all together and be able to celebrate us as a people. And for me, it's been all people, because we're all citizens of the world. It's not a white or black, yellow, green. It's just all are welcome. And I think it probably reminiscent over the name Bushman himself, which means to me a free-spirited person. So we are the people of the world. And that energy is what I bring. And I think it's been well received and embraced by all. So I'm excited.
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I was always into beauty, healthcare, not healthcare, but, facials and manicures and all about my internal health and external beauty, however I could, manifest it with makeup, skincare, or just being creative and having fun. And I always, therefore, wanted to be a fashion designer. And I ended up in New York City, went straight to FIT right out of high school, and obtained a degree in fashion design and ended up working in cosmetics. I loved fashion design, but minimum wage, it wasn't cutting it in New York City. So I ended up in the cosmetics industry and loved it. Ended up coming up with my own brand after rising to a VP of product development position with a big cosmetics house called Naomi Sims back in the 80s, about 87. But then I ended up branching off and leaving New York and starting my own line. And it was called Universal Colors Cosmetics. And that was really the epitome of who I was.
Hey family, it's your girl JoJo from Orlando's #1 for today's R&B and throwbacks, better known as Star 94.5, and I'm just happy to be here. But I like to tell people that I didn't really choose radio. Radio chose me. I set off when I left high school. I set out to become a doctor. I was going to study medicine and biology and pre-med and all that, and took one elective course in communications, liked it, decided to change my major to radio, television broadcasting, transferred from the University of South Florida in Tampa to the University of Central Florida here in Orlando, and started studying RTV out at UCF. I haven't looked back since, really. It's an interesting story because I was actually not recruited by a radio station, but I entered a pageant. I entered a Miss Black Orlando pageant, and a radio station was sponsoring it at the time. We're talking 1984, folks. Yes, here it is. 1984, the Miss Black Orlando pageant was sponsored by WORL AM 1270.
I began my education career in 1999. And I would say education kind of found me through divine intervention. I initially was a juvenile probation officer, and one of my main duties was to incarcerate kids. After doing that for approximately 6 years, I felt that I needed to do something more positive and try to reach those youth before they actually started making those bad decisions and being a part of our juvenile justice system.
Ordinarily, when you left Haiti, you have to stop either Miami or go straight to New York. But myself, my destination was in Tampa. I stopped in Miami, changed my airplane to come to Tampa, Florida. From Tampa, the Church of the Nazarene, who has their headquarters in Lakeland, they asked me if I can visit Lakeland, Florida, a very little town between Orlando and Tampa.
It seems at days that it's unexpected, but my day is very routine. Because of my son with autism, routine is safety. It's secure. So I manage my home on routine. However, it's kind of a controlled disorder. There are days where things will go smoothly. There are days where it's not. And in all that chaos, God just gives me a peace. It's not as chaotic as I seem. It's controlled. I have 3 boys, and a few years ago when my son was diagnosed, my husband and I decided that I would stay home. And the trajectory of having a toddler, a baby, It seemed very essential for me, but I think that in this season, now that they're teenagers, it's the perfect time that I am home.
My name's Kay Rawlins. I'm the VP of Community Relations and the President of Orlando City Foundation. This is a great time to be involved in soccer. So I'm an ex-educator. Once I had my own children and realized how much I loved teaching them and being at home with them, I actually went back to college when I was 31 to pursue a degree in early childhood education. Loved doing that, and that's where I got my love for teaching children and getting them to learn to read, which is an absolutely big passion of mine. Reading is the key to life. If you can teach children from an early age to learn to love books, you open up such a whole world of possibility for them.
My name is Gina Garcia. My story, I guess, came to be after years of not understanding why I wasn't being successful in my business and my relationships with my family dynamics. I dove into therapy, and it was because of a hate crime. I was actually a victim of a hate crime and started having flashbacks, and I couldn't understand what they were. And what we came to as a conclusion, is I was actually abducted when I was a child from the Fashion Square Mall, which is right down the street. And I couldn't get the person that took me 25, now 35 years ago, out of my head. The person that assaulted me as a child, I was 8, was still dictating my entire life. And I was tired of it, to be honest with you. What got me to the point of making a movie and going through that journey is something that happened to me as an 8-year-old affected my entire adult life. And I'm better than that. And so for me, I just decided one day that enough's enough, and I dove into therapy at the VA, Orlando VA, and met a great group of women that were also dealing with the challenges of PTSD, and said enough's enough. And at the end of that journey, I said, I'm going to tell my story.
My name is Keena Johnson. I am a pediatric neurosurgeon who I also operate on adults as well. And I was 3 years old when I realized that I wanted to help people for the rest of my life. And I knew that being a pediatric neurosurgeon was my destiny from the age of 12. At the age of 12, I was fortunate enough to be from Baltimore, Maryland, and there was a pediatric neurosurgeon who at that time separated conjoined twins, and that was the first of its kind in the United States. And it took a whole team of physicians, but he was the main physician, the lead neurosurgeon, and there was lots of publicity about this man. What was most astonishing to me was that this was a brown man. And where I'm from, again in Baltimore, this wasn't seen on TV. You didn't see a lot of brown men on TV that were doing this and getting this type of publicity. So that in and of itself, I was won over. And I looked at the TV, and I was watching it at the time with my father, and I looked at my dad, and I said, that's easy. I can do that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a pediatric neurosurgeon, just like Ben Carson. And that was the pediatric neurosurgeon who separated the conjoined twins and who I said I was going to be like.
My name is Dick Batchelor, and I was raised in Orlando, and many people ask me why I was not leaving here. And I just feel like I'm part of the fabric of the community. I saw a lot of things growing up in Orla Vista and Pine Hills, and I saw that people were really almost miniaturized and didn't have a lot of influence. So I figured, well, if I get elected, they can have influence. Sometimes you get frustrated when you can't convince your colleagues in the legislature to do what you think is right, but defeat was never good for me. In fact, I take it as a motivation, so I go back at it until you win. I've been most proud of a number of things dealing with children. I wrote the child abuse law in the state of Florida, domestic violence law in the state of Florida, helped set up child protection teams to look at children who were being abused. And so dealing with children and touching lives like that means the most to me.
Well, I end up here today on the basis of the journey that I've been for the last 64 years. Started out as in a preacher's home, grew up in the Deep South, feeling all of the experiences and the pressures of life over the last 64 years. But the biggest piece of my journey has been the struggle that I had with dyslexia. I was a kid that was misunderstood. I didn't have support. Dyslexia wasn't a subject, even a word. You were either slow or you were retarded or you were normal. I grew up hearing my second grade teacher tell me that my mother should put me in a school for the mentally retarded. And my mother said, he may be slow, but he's not retarded. That piece shaped my life. And I am today the result of a man that has struggled, worked hard, anticipated the fact that the God that created me with intention and purpose. And therefore, my journey has been nothing but a journey of life that I've experienced and the privilege of investing my life in other individuals.
When I found out that we were going to be parents again, I was actually ecstatic. You know, we were a little bit older. I was 42 years old. Of course, I married up. I married a younger wife, a beautiful wife, obviously. And we had a prior marriage. So I had 2 adult children, and she had a child who was about 12 years older than that. We were in a different stage of our life, to be honest with you. I was financially more secure. I was okay with being a dad again. I actually love being a dad, to be honest with you. I coach soccer. There's nothing more important to a guy than going to his son's football game or a soccer game, and enjoying those times in life between a father and his son are just so critical and so important. So I was looking forward to that because my son was an adult, and it's been a little bit of time since we had the opportunity to do that. So I was really excited. What did the excitement turn into when we found out our son was sick? You know, there's probably no other word to describe other than horror, to be honest with you. All your hopes, all your dreams, everything that you anticipated having the opportunity to be a dad again was pretty much flushed down the toilet. Like my wife, I became angry at God, not understanding why. For all practical, worldly reasons, we were the good guys. I spent my lifetime in career and service, dedicating it to people, 30 years on the force, risking my life. Now we're faced with a situation we didn't know why, we didn't know how, we didn't know what the reasons were, that our son just wasn't going to make it and other kids were going to. And it wasn't easy. For me, I've lived a life of a warrior my entire life. I spent years on the SWAT team. I spent years rising to the ranks at the sheriff's office, rising to the ranks of the high-risk incident commander. There wasn't a situation, there wasn't a drama, there wasn't something I couldn't handle. I've done it thousands of times, but I couldn't handle this.
I wear his fingerprint every day. He's tattooed on my shoulder. I carry this little boy with me every day. That's how I get through. He's always with me.
Well, I think it's important that we have black male role models in our communities. So oftentimes we see the negative things that are said about men of color or men who look like myself. And I felt that it would be important for me to use my gift as a singer, as a personality, to help our youth see a positive role model, to get a message from someone that looks like them so they can relate to it, and to hopefully bring about change in our community and give them hope and give them the desire to be their very best. When you have the kids come up to you and say they joined the church because they saw you sing one Sunday, or they decided that they want to go back to college and finish because you did it yourself, and all of the things that people will say and encourage you to do in life, it makes it worthwhile. I especially the young people. My passion is the young folks, because they're our future, and we need to make certain that we expend every possible effort in making certain that they see someone who is doing something positive so they can one day too be successful as well.
As a civil leader, I am Apostle V.W. Jones, serving to a community of people who have a desire to enhance their existing life through sound knowledge and teaching. As an individual, I am also a father and a mentor, and I'm also a lover of good music. All of those things, I think, make the language of a community into a place where we can call it a village. And when you have a village, we can raise many issues as well as great people for society. So my thoughts. For me, it was interesting. I have been born into what we call Christendom. I left Christendom as a young man wanting to do his own thing. Found that much of what I thought was true was a farce. Not that it was a lie, it's just that everybody didn't believe what they'd proclaimed. I began to then search out different faith systems. Fell in love with another group called NOI, Nation of Islam. And then I left them and found another group called Hinduism. And I was searching for inward truths, and I couldn't find them. I delved into different social plights, such as alcohol and drugs and partying, the whole 9 yards. And always searching for something to fill a void that I knew innately needed something to feed it. And that's when I got back into searching for knowledge. And when I searched for knowledge, I found a place that I've now been able to draw from, a deep well of wisdom. And so that hunger comes from trying to actually make my life something that would mean something in the end.